All right, what is up, my friends? I'm pumped to talk to you today about goal setting. It's the first of the year. We need to set some new goals, and I'm excited to walk you through some key strategies that have had a huge impact on my life, but more importantly for you, things that I'm confident will help you attain the goals you're about to set. And we're all busy, so now we're going to dive right into the nitty-gritty details. But listen, that being said, do not listen to this passively. Listen to me right now, okay? Grab a piece of paper, whatever it is you prefer to take notes on, and dedicate yourself to learning for the next 30 minutes so you can take action on as much of this as possible and absolutely crush your goals. I believe that complexity, right, is the enemy of execution, and you better believe that executing, obviously, is the key to not just setting goals, but achieving those goals. So because of that, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to talk you through and explain some complex system. Listen, use whatever system works for you, okay? But regardless of what that system is, there are proven principles that we need to remember and then remember to execute on, right? So first, before we even dive in, just in case this is a question, why should we bother to set goals in the first place? Hopefully that's not the question, but if it is, it's because clarity, about what we want and why we want it just dramatically increases our ability to get it, and that's because our minds are wired to gravitate towards familiarity, familiar things. So the more that we review our goals, the more familiar they become, and the more that we gravitate towards them. Familiarity, that's a tough word. I also think it's important to note that the majority of people do not do what I'm about to talk about. And that's important to note because my advice is to never follow the majority. The majority of people are average, and not due to lack of skills or lack of opportunity, but because of lack of focus and execution, right? They'll spend more time planning a vacation than they will planning their life. And I know that because I lived that life, man. And once again, the things I'm going to go through had a huge impact. And if you're listening to this, I'm very confident that you do not want to be average. I'm confident about that, right? And in order for us to escape averagitis, we need to execute on the things that will separate us from the majority. So today, let's talk about how to do that, okay? Let's dive in. So, here we go. I want you to think of this as 3 phases, okay? So 3 different phases. The first phase I would consider the prep phase, right? The prep phase, essentially how we should prepare ourselves to make sure that we're in the correct mindset. The second phase is the planning phase. Planning and defining the goals so that we're clear about what we're about to execute on, what we're going to create. And then the third is play. Mother effing game time at that point, okay? It's important to understand what is actually going to assure that we take the steps necessary to win. So, phase 1, the preparation stage, it's simple, okay? Our brains are no different than our muscles, meaning it takes a second for them to get, warmed up. So we have to make sure that it's warmed up before we sit down to plan our goals. Whenever I sit down to plan goals, I like to get the blood flowing, right? So that can be a little workout. That could even just be, sitting up straight. You could be taking a walk outside, doing some, sit-ups, push-ups, whatever it is. Just make sure that whatever you do, it gets your mind into a peak state, right? Energized peak state. And then once you're there, we need to make a wish list of everything that we want to accomplish, right? The key, though, is to turn off that part of our brain that thinks that we can't do something, right? Even if it's just for a few minutes. And I want you to let your imagination turn on. Take 5 minutes to list out as much, as you can. Purging your mind of everything and putting that shit on paper. Clearing out that shit out from our mind and putting it on paper, okay? And once again, it's not about, can I do this? This is about getting everything out of your head and flooding all your hopes and dreams, whatever, for 2021 onto paper, okay? So phase 2 gets a little bit more complex though, okay? Phase 2 is where we begin to get very clear about what we're about to create. I spoke about the importance of executing on proven principles, and the 5 principles I'm about to walk you through are those proven principles, okay? So principle number 1 is specificity. We need to be specific. We have to be specific with what we're doing. Specificity is the key to producing anything of value, okay? So we have to have specificity. These have to be specific goals, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Our mind can't go to work trying to process generic or general ideas, right? Our mind goes to work to process specific things that we put in our mind, right? So general examples would be, I want to lose weight. I want to close on an apartment deal. I want to find partners for my business. I want to grow my business, right? These are slogans, wishes, dreams that are vague, right? Specific examples would be the exact amount of weight that you want to lose, the exact amount of units that you will acquire, and I would even say the specific characteristics you're looking for in a deal, right? Also the exact partners that you're looking for. I recorded a webinar, I think it was about a week ago, where I defined the different partners that multifamily investors might be looking for. So if you are looking for partners, as an example, you have to define what specifically you're looking for. What roles will they play? Will they be capital raisers, sponsors, operators, upfront money partners, investors, etc. I would even say, what kind of person will they be? Kind, selfless, humble, dedicated, funny, happy, positive, handsome, whatever. We have to define what we specifically want. It's not make money, it's specifically how much money do we want to make. It's not grow my business. Specifically, what does grow my business mean, right? We have to get specific. Specificity, produces prosperity, and definiteness produces happiness, right? We have to be exact, not abstract. That was good, by the way. That shit was good. So specificity also keeps us accountable, right? It holds us to that specific detail. So, and let's be honest, some of us don't like that, right? Sometimes we'd rather be vague so that we can decide, if we hit it or not, right? So let's say that the goal is to close 100 units, and we only close 97 units. Well, we missed the mark, right? Still pretty decent, but we missed the mark. If the goal was to close a deal and we close a 20 unit, well, now at that point we can choose to lie to ourselves and pretend that we're pumped instead of looking in the mirror and seeing how we can improve. And progress is all about improving, right? Course correcting. Once again, though, we have to be specific, and I cannot stress that enough. The second principle is to be accountable. Accountable. We have to share our goals with someone who will actually keep us accountable to those goals. That could be a spouse, it could be a friend, a business partner, whatever, but we have to share it with at least one person who we value, right? Who we don't want to let down, right? Who we care about their opinion. And that's important because there's so much power in saying our goals out loud. I'll talk about that. But also being accountable for those goals. This is another layer of commitment. A layer that the average people, I would say, shy away from. Because shit, what if they don't hit their goal, right? Those who excel focus more on what they need to do to actually excel, and far less, if at all, on what will happen if they don't, right? So finding somebody to be accountable to outside of ourselves is one of those steps, to make sure that we're actually going to make it happen. It's another layer of commitment. And the next principle is to read and visualize. Read and visualize, okay? We need to read them out loud and visualize our goals in our mind daily. This way we see them, hear them, feel them, right, every day. I personally like to write out my goals every day, but I'm not going to lie, that takes time, right? So because of that, I would suggest mastering reading and visualizing first. A lot of people will ask me along those lines, how do I visualize them? Visualization can be different if you're just beginning. Some people ask, do I use a dream board? Do I meditate? Do you do both? Is there other ways? And I've used dream boards, and listen, I love that strategy, but now I prefer to close my eyes, right, and visualize the goal is. So what I do is I write my goals out in specificity, obviously, right, and then I close my eyes and I repeat them just how I just wrote it out. And if I cannot recite it with exactness, then I don't know my goals well enough. But listen, you can use whatever visualization strategy you want, or both, but whatever it is, make sure that you see it daily. And then reading it out loud is a lot more common, but the common question with that is, how should I say them? And this is where I struggle in the beginning, because the advice that I would get, which I'm sure you've heard before, is a lot of people will say, write it down, as if you own it now, right? So it's not, I want to make $1 million, but with that example, it would be, I make $1 million, or I have $1 million, right? And that doesn't work for me, though, because my bullshit meter goes through the frickin', roof, because I know that whatever it is that I'm working to achieve, I don't have that yet. So if I say that I do, it just doesn't resonate with me. I like to speak, and I'll talk about this more in a second, but I like to say things that, I truly believe, right? So I speak as if I expect them to happen. Reading and visualizing is, that can be challenging to do daily as well, just so you know, if you haven't created a habit. But all that means is we have to create a habit to do it. And the key is simplicity, right? My habit is I do it at the same time every day. So when I wake up and before I go to bed, once again, right, complexity is the enemy of execution. So keep it simple. My system is not elaborate, which I feel like it's why it works for me, right? So what I do is I visualize them in the morning. I meditate in the mornings, and I visualize them then, and then when I fall asleep. Literally, when I fall asleep, I don't count sheep. I certainly don't scroll Facebook. What I do is I kiss Britt goodnight, put my eye mask on, and yes, I wear an eye mask. It's a game changer. Don't judge me. I say a prayer of gratitude in my head, and then I visualize the goals that I've written out. That's what I fall asleep to, right? And then as for reading my goals, I read them out loud in my truck, either before I go surfing or before I go to the gym. I do one of those two things every day. And the more that we see and say our goals, the more familiar we become with it, right? Which means the more likely we are to produce it. And I want to be clear, that's not magic. It's not, mumbo jumbo either. It is literally how our brain works, okay? This is due, largely in part to what's called the reticular activating system. It's also known as the RAS. The RAS is essentially a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information and only lets in what it deems important. Now, how does it determine what is in fact important? Our RAS, reticular activating system, right, takes what we focus on and creates a filter for it. So the more we feed our brains with what we want, the more important those things become to the RAS, and in turn, is where the magic happens. The more the RAS will reveal things to us, resources, partners, opportunities to actually get us there. But it also reveals things that validate our beliefs, right? So if we believe something strongly, the RAS will reveal situations, people, places, things, right, to prove our belief right. Which, on a side note, this is why talking politics, not politics, that's actually a fun conversation. Politics is damn near pointless, but it's also why beliefs, dreams, goals are so important to visualize and read, right? So the more that we repeat them, the more that we believe them, and then magically, once again, the more we are able to take control of our lives, and that is a huge deal. And once again, it's not foo-foo stuff. Okay, listen to me when I say this. It is a scientific fact. That's how our brain works, okay? The next principle is set a deadline. There has to be a deadline. And along with those lines, setting a deadline, right? It has to have So it has to have a date or a deadline, or else it won't be a priority, first off. And we just learned that our RAS screens out anything that is not important. But along those same lines, that deadline cannot be, listen to me, cannot be what the average, and the majority do, right? The majority of people set a deadline, by the end of the year. It's how the majority of people set goals, and why the majority of goals are not accomplished. If our goal is to close a deal by the end of the year, we'll never get serious about it, okay? The problem with long-term goals, a year out, whatever, right, is they feed the natural beast of procrastination, right? We start in January with these big old goals, right? But by the end of January, we're a little off. But shit, man, we still have 11 months. We're good. Relax, we're good. By the end of March, we're still behind. But once again, I mean, still plenty of time to catch up, right? Listen, in other words, our long-term goals, right, cause this lack of urgency. And we convince ourselves that because we have a lot of time, a week or two here and there won't matter, which in reality is why most of us get to December and we're nowhere close to what the original goal was. The fact is that every week counts, every day counts, every moment counts, okay? So we just need to be conscious of the reality that execution happens daily and weekly, not monthly or quarterly, okay? Or definitely not yearly. So we need to set quarterly goals, right? Which means our goal wouldn't be to close a deal by the end of the year. Instead, we would shrink that down, and it would be to close a 50-plus unit deal by March 17th, right? Long-term goals are important, right? They give us guidance, but there has to be urgency. And most people grossly overestimate what they can do in a month, yet they grossly underestimate what they can do in a year. A year is a freaking damn long time, right? So we have to change that up. Okay, which brings us to principle number 5, which is to expect that the goal is going to happen. We have to expect that this goal is going to happen. We can't hope it happens, right? We have to expect it to happen. Expecting it to happen makes the likelihood of it actually happening so much greater. In fact, I bet this, if you make yearly goals, the ones that happen, I would imagine, are the ones that you actually expect to happen. We have to be shocked that it doesn't happen, not shocked that it does happen, okay? So to quickly recap, what if all of our goals that we set were set while we were in the proper mindset, right? A peak state. They were specific. We felt this sense of accountability. And then we read them and visualized them every day and fully expected to frickin' crush them before our specified deadline, right? You're starting to see, right now, I'm confident about this, you're starting to see why this is so important, right? How these principles are proven principles, not in question, they're proven, right? So, which brings us now into phase 3, okay? Phase 3 is the play phase, but it's more specifically how we play the game to win. So just like there are proven principles to how we plan our goals, there are proven principles to how we actually get ourselves right to achieve those goals. And I got these 4 principles from Ed Milet, and they are spot on. Okay, spot on. The first one is there has to be a compelling reason. So I'll just put reason. There has to be a compelling reason. It's so important. I talk about this all the time. But the goal, won't get us out of bed. The reason for the goal will. So I'll give you an example of this. I personally want to have $125,000 in passive monthly cash flow. Now, why do I want that, right? Because there has to be a reason. And literally with each goal that I have, right, I write out my goal and then I have the reason next to it, right? My reasons are usually in line with my dreams or in line with serving or helping other people. So for example, okay, one of the reasons that I want $125,000 per month in cash flow is I've always dreamed of having a house on the beach in Maui, right? But that being said, a house on the beach out here in Maui equates to about $30,000 to $40,000 a month in mortgage and expenses. So, and if you've ever been to one of my classes or heard me speak at all, I'm sure that you've heard me mention, time freedom. And far more important to me than a house on the beach is I want time freedom, right? Time to spend with Pax and Marley, and time to spend with Brittany. Time to think about them and their needs, and time to serve them and help them fulfill those needs. That means the world to me, right? Time to mentor and serve other people, same thing. And then of course I need time to actually enjoy my house on the beach, obviously, right? Financial certainty is another one though. It's a huge motivator for me. The thought of my family going without, it absolutely terrifies me. I want my family to have peace of mind always. So with that in mind, if I have to work for $125,000 a month, I won't be able to justify that house on the beach because I won't have time freedom. I certainly won't, assure that my family has financial certainty and peace of mind, especially if I kick the bucket. So it has to be passive. And I believe that I am where I am not because I'm naturally more focused or disciplined, but because my why, my purpose, my compelling reasons make me more focused and disciplined. Having compelling reasons behind our goals, dude, that's a life force, man. That's a life force. Distractions are going to come. They will come. But our reasons have to be bigger than our distractions. Our reasons have to be bigger than our distractions, right? The next principle is momentum goals. So, momentum goals. Oof, my handwriting went to the shitter on that one. Momentum goals are another driving force, right? Momentum goals are goals that I expect to hit early on in the year. Things that I know will help me build momentum, and I certainly have stretch goals, right? So these are things that stretch goals are things that might take me into August or October or maybe into the end of the year. But I set momentum goals that will help that'll help me get to my stretch goals, right? Things that will help me build momentum. And then the next principle would be reminders, and this is key, okay? Reminders. That's another driving force. Once again, I have all sorts of reminders that go off throughout the year. And I'll say this as a side note. I've mentioned a lot of things, and all of them are important, but this is the game changer. This is what you will email or call me about and tell me how much of a difference that it made in your life. This is why, you'll give me just a freaking gigantic bear hug when you see me next, and what you'll mention when you're telling your story or giving a testimonial or giving advice to other people. It's a game changer, okay? The question I would ask is, how often are we truly reviewing like our performance, right? Is it yearly? I would say most have an alarm that goes off once a year. Right now, typically, the end of the year, first of the year, right? Usually around the first of the year, where they review their life and make adjustments. Or maybe it's monthly. Pretty good performers review and make adjustments monthly. Daily and weekly is a lot better. World-class people review their goals and performance daily or weekly, right? But the super elite that I've studied, those overachievers, right, have an internal alarm that goes off almost hourly. Hourly, they're asking themselves, what am I focusing on, right? How can I improve? What am I doing to get to the goal? How can I course correct to make sure that happens, right? Very few people operate at that level, the 1% of the 1%. And those of us that are still human, yes, that's you, by the way, we need reminders, okay, to keep us on track. So we can't just list out our goals. We have to literally design the year in advance. What I do is I place reminders or alarm clocks in a couple different places. One of those is a calendar, like a Google Calendar, and the other one is a daily journal that I use. Okay, the daily journal, I feel like, is a video in and of itself. That was the biggest game changer for me. Not even a question. So, for example, if I have a goal for March 15th, right, I'll set an alarm for January 15th that'll say, all right, man, you're 20% of the way there, or you only have 60 days left, you should be at X, right? I also predate my journals, by the way, for each quarter. So on January 15th, right at the top of the page in big bold letters, it will say something like, dude, are you making progress, right, towards X goal, in big bold letters. I'll set another reminder for February 15th. Hey, reminder, right, you're 60% of the way there to your deadline for X goal, right? Now think about this. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm scrolling through Facebook, daydreaming in my office, and all of a sudden an alarm goes off, right? An alarm goes off. Hey, reminder, are you on track, right? Or I open my daily journal, and I typically do that in the morning, so I open up my daily journal in the morning and I see a reminder, and immediately I am energized again. I'll schedule, another thing that I do is I'll actually schedule actual time slots to review my progress, right? Hey, reminder, you've scheduled 15 minutes to review X goal here, right? Taking that little extra time to do this will assure that you are refocused, man, re-energized, re-inspired, which will make sure that you course correct and move forward. Key. The last principle is to work on you, okay? This is also very important. In life, we will only achieve what we believe we're worth, right? So what we believe we deserve, essentially, which means we have to actively find ways to change our identity. You know, if you can begin to do things that either, you know, you believe others aren't willing to do, or even if it's just things that the former you wasn't willing to do, you know, all of a sudden we begin to believe that the new you, right, deserves more. Along those lines, there's a very strategic reason that I doubled down on my efforts when the coronavirus hit in March. I had been coasting, and deservedly so, okay, but I essentially trained myself to look for separators, right, ways that I can go against the grain. So as everyone was all of a sudden laying low, coasting through quarantine, dude, I freaking doubled down, got office space, and started logging more work hours than I had in, dude, a long time. Why? Because like I mentioned above, you know earlier, we have to search for ways to separate ourselves from the majority. This is how we change our identity, and this is how we begin to believe that we deserve more, right? By doing things that other people view as hard. All of our goals for the year, for next quarter, right? Out of all of them, changing your identity needs to be at the top of the list. You know, what trainings can you take? What books can you read? You know, who do you need to start hanging out with? What habit do you need to get out? And what habit do you need to get in, right, to create? Hard, scary, that's different for everyone, right? But everyone can benefit from doing hard and scary things. That's because it changes our identity. And changing our identity is not only how we achieve goals, it's how we actually maintain and keep that success, right? So if we don't change our identity, we might be able to achieve something in the short term, but we won't be able to keep it in the long term, right? But on the flip side, when we do hard things, we begin to separate ourselves from our former self and actually look back. We have to actually look back and acknowledge this too. That's another thing, by the way, Kate. You have to actually acknowledge that you're doing something hard. So many people do those things, but they never give themselves credit. That's a total waste. I'm always literally logging and writing down things that I've done that are separators. Anyway, when we do those hard things, right, and pat ourselves on the back for them, we begin to believe that we deserve more, and our RAS kicks into gear to reveal all sorts of situations, people, you know, places, things that will make sure our belief is validated. All right. I know for sure that you found something valuable from what we just discussed here, right? But that is just the beginning. Now you have to take action. And let me tell you what the majority of people will do with this info. Not a damn thing, okay? But that's okay, because this wasn't for them. Another chunk of people, actually I'll say this too, will try to change, right? But what they'll do is they'll try to change the principles to align with their comfort level. And they may grow, but they'll grow very minimally. But you, my friend, you are that badass elite performer who will actually take this and run with it. And you are the reason that I recorded the video. That being said, commit, fully commit. Okay, if a year is too much to wrap your head around, give yourself 90 days. Okay, 90 days. But 90 days of no excuses, no modifications, full on commitment, and your life will change. Period. Not a question mark. Period. It's a proven fact, proven principles. And I want you, anybody can commit to something for 90 days, including you, because you're an elite, badass performer. And I cannot wait to hear about all of your success in 2021, okay? Hope this helps. Another thing that I'll mention is we just launched our journal. And I've been working on this journal for a long time. And like I said, absolute game changer for me. Okay, and I've designed this journal with gratitude and daily goals and how to structure daily goals and daily actions, and you will love it. I'll drop the link below, okay? and you should get a journal and dedicate yourself to at least 90 days and watch your life change, okay? Aloha, my friends. Here's to a great 2020, 2021, right? The best is yet to come, okay? Aloha.